Hi everyone, my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my January end of the month wrap up to share with you. So as always, my mid-month wrap up will be linked in the cards and the description box below, so you can go check out all the books that I read from January 1st through January 15th. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about my statistics for the last half of January, as well as my statistics for the whole month of January, and all of the books that I read in the last half of January. So from January 16th through the 31st. So in my mid-month wrap-up, I decided to put D and Fs and include that in my total, but I don't want to do that because it's not actually a book that I completed and finished, if that makes sense. So in total, I had 3 DNFs for the month, and I'm just not even going to talk about those. So in total, I read 28 books for the whole month of January. 16 of those books were from the last half of January. For a breakdown of like the type of books I read in the last half of January, I had 9 audiobooks, 7 ebooks, and no physical books. Even though I do have physical books to hold up, I didn't physically read those. I either listened to the audio or I read it on my Kindle or something like that. For a breakdown of genre for the last half of the month, I had 12 contemporary romances, 1 fantasy romance, 1 romantic suspense, and 2 dark romances. For a breakdown of star rating, I had 3 5-star reads, 3 4.5-star reads, 6 4-star reads, 3 3.5 stars, and 1 3-star. Now, for the total, for the whole 28 books that I read in the whole month of January, that included 11,719 pages. So in my reading journal that I have on my iPad, which is sitting in front of me, they have, they call it libraries. It's just like, you can put the picture, your title, your rating, and then you click the picture and it's a hyperlink that takes you to like a full like review page of it, and you can put like the date it was published, how many pages and stuff like that. So I've been keeping up with that, which I've actually really been enjoying. And I've never counted my pages before, but in this reading journal that I have digitally, it has a space for pages. So yes, over 11,000 pages that I've read in the whole month of January, which is freaking bananas to me, freaking bananas. But for a breakdown of genre, I had 22 contemporary romances. I had a very big contemporary romance reading month. I've just been loving those. I had 3 fantasy romances, 1 romantic suspense, and 4 dark romances. For all of the books, like star ratings, I had 5 5-star reads, 6 4.5 stars, 10 4 stars, 5 3.5 stars, and 2 3 stars. And then the types of books, I had 1 physical book, 14 ebooks, and 13 audiobooks. So it's a pretty good split between audio and ebook, which I'm pretty happy about. I had a really good reading month. While I didn't have that many 5-star reads, I've had a lot of 4 4.5-star reads. I've just been really trying hard to narrow in exactly what my ratings are and very specific on what I rate, so I can use the full 1-star to 5-star rating system instead of just like 4 and 3 and 5 stars. So even though I didn't have any 2.5 stars, I DNF'd those books that would have been those ratings, which I'll probably start doing anyway. But let's just go ahead and talk about the books that I read in the last half of January. So the first one is actually a new to me author that I read, and that was Virtuous Lies by Haley Jenner. This is a new to me author. I think this is a duo, so it's 2 women that write under this pen name. And this first book is about 250 pages. I downloaded this book in Kindle Unlimited, so I read it on my Kindle, and I gave it 3 stars. This is a very interesting. I don't know why the authors chose to do it this way. So I did read the second book, which is called Fractured Secrets, because I was more interested in that book, but I like to read things in order. And so the first book really honestly seemed like a novella. It was a very fast moving. It opened up this world of characters and mafia world and all of this stuff like that. But I felt like there was so much happening in like the 270 pages that there was. So I felt like it was just really quick moving. Like it was good, solid writing. I'm very interested to see how they grow in their writing and stuff like that. I just felt like there was everything fast moving. The characters really weren't developed all too much because it was a super short book, but it introduced the second book, which is Fractured Secrets, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. I rated it 4 on Goodreads, 3.5 stars for. It's a very solid romance. It's a mafia romance that I would actually recommend to a lot of people, and I think a lot of people would enjoy. The main male character is very much the alpha hole, protect you, toucher, and I'll kill you, toucher, and I will cut out your tongue. And that's always really exciting to read. The first book follows the enforcer kind of the mafia. It's not the mafia boss, but he's kind of very close to the mafia boss. And there's an arranged marriage happening with our female character, but she ruins herself so she doesn't have to marry this random person, and then she is married off to him. So it's like kind of very much them being forced together, forced proximity. It was enjoyable. It was okay, solid. But the second book is my favorite and one that I really enjoyed. So this follows Enzo, who is the mafia boss, and his best friend's sister. So the hero from the first book, his sister that comes into his life. He didn't even know he had this. It's a half sister. Comes into his life after her mother kind of like takes her away because she knew she's kind of like a bastard child. The mom had like an affair with the hero from the first book's father, and then when he passed away, the mother knew that she had to take the child and run. So it's very interesting. She's a firecracker. She really gives it to him. She does not like bow down to him. They're very much equals in that way, and they're forced together for X amount of, I think it's like 2 weeks just in a house. They're hiding out and stuff like that. It was enjoyable. I personally enjoyed it. It's a mafia romance. I would recommend pretty much to beginners because it's not heavy in the mafia, but it's a really good alpha toucher and I'll kill you vibes book, mafia romance, if that makes sense. And then I read an arc of Whispers of You by Catherine Cowles. Catherine sent me this physical book, but I got the ebook and the audiobook arc before the physical book came in. So I listened to the audio arc and it was so enjoyable. Now, a lot of people think that Catherine Cowles is small town. I personally believe this book is more romantic suspense. It is definitely heavy in the romantic suspense. Of course, it takes place in a small town, but it's heavy in the romantic suspense. So don't think it's just some cute small town romance going into it. It's also a second chance romance. It's her first second chance. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was very, very good. While I do not like romantic suspense, I still enjoyed this book. We see Holt mentioned very, very briefly in the Tattered and Torn series, but now he comes back to his small town where he grew up, and you see how he kind of had this relationship with our female character, Ren, when they were younger, and something tragic happens to her. It's all in the prologue from their past, and he kind of goes away because he thinks that he needs to not be around her. He feels guilty and all this stuff like that. So now he comes back and she's like, what are you doing? He also has a second chance with her, with his family, because he's been away from the town. He very rarely comes to see his family, but this book opens up this whole Lost and Found series that Catherine is starting really, really well. You're introduced to all the characters, and I cannot wait to see some of the character stories because I'm in love already. The next book I read was Jaspervell by Devney Perry, and I gave this book 4 stars. So actually the audio released 2 weeks early, basically, and I wasn't expecting the audio to be released, but I picked it up. I got the Audible credit and I gave it 4 stars. This is we got married in Vegas and we should get an annulment, but we're not going to. We're going to stay together for the sake of our families, and it was cute. That's probably a really good way to describe it. Devney Perry writes really, really well. Like, you're going to get a really solid read, but this one was cute. It was adorable. It was wholesome. It doesn't have the the most character development, I would say, compared to Juniper Hill, which is still my favorite in the Eden series, but it is a solid read. I personally enjoyed it. I just love Devney Perry's writing, so I knew I was going to get a solid read. And I wasn't mad about it. I'm glad I read it early. So the next book I read was Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is the first book in this Boys of Tonemen series. And yes, this is thick. Oh my God, this book is thick. I'm going to talk about these two together because it's Binding 13 and Keeping 13. I did read both of these. I gave them both 5 stars. I listened to the audio while I physically read along to these books, just because they have very heavy Irish accents in the audiobook. Not that it's hard to understand them when you speed it up. I just wanted the full experience too. And there's some Irish slang that you just are not going to pick up until you see it on page, honestly. But I'm going to talk about these two together because it follows Johnny and Shannon, and it's their complete kind of like duet, their complete story. There is not an HEA in this book, but it ends on a cliffhanger, so you have to continue with Keeping 13. These are two of my favorite reads of the month. These are some of my favorite books of all time. Like, I love when I can pick up a book and it completely blows me away. This is a high school romance, it's a light sports romance. They play rugby. Well, Johnny plays rugby. He's captain of the rugby team. He's supposed to be this huge rugby star. He's 17 in this book, and he meets Shannon, who has had a very hard past with her family. Her dad is very abusive emotionally and physically, and she's been bullied at her other school, so she goes to Tonemen. is it Toman? I hope I'm saying that right. And she starts school there, and she actually is like late for class, so she runs across the pitch, which is like the field where they play rugby. And the ball is kicked and knocks her in the head, kicked by Johnny, and he's like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. And she's very much like out of it. She doesn't know what's going on, so he takes her to the nurse. Her mom thinks that she's being bullied again, and that kind of just sparks their romance, sparks their friendship, and it is such a beautiful story. And these two books are not going to be for everyone, just because they are in high school. She's 16 and he's 17. And then in Keeping 13, he turns 18 and she turns 17. So they're very young, but I would say it's very mature. And I love them so much. Like these two books, I love them. I already want to reread them. That's how much I love them. So yeah, these are definitely two of my favorites of the month. 2 of those 5-star reads went to those 2 books because they're absolutely beautiful. And then I decided to read the next 2 books in the Off Balance series. So I'm going to talk about those together as well. That's Execution and Release. I read Balance at the beginning when I talk about my thoughts in my mid-month wrap-up. But these 2, I can't really say all too much because it's like a continuation of the same couple. And I don't want to spoil it for anything. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who is planning on reading these books. I have a lot of thoughts of these books. They're very taboo, very forbidden if you know anything about it. It's a romance between her coach, who is 33, 34, and the gymnast, his like athlete, she's 17. I'm pretty sure she's 17. So Execution, I gave 4 stars, and Release, I gave 3.5 stars. Execution had a lot of kind of like, surprises where I was like, I'm surprised, but I'm kind of not surprised. It's one of those things where it's like shock factor. And then Release definitely felt like a filler book where she stretched it. Lucia stretched it. I heard that it was supposed to be a trilogy, but she wanted it to be 5 books. So this is right in the middle. It's book 3, definitely a filler book. Mad about it? No, we got to see a lot of gymnast stuff, like athletic gymnasts, like flipping and flopping, and she knows her gymnast shit, I'm not gonna lie. This is when the chronic illness of the book, of the series, is introduced, so I'm interested to see where Lucia takes that in the next 2 books, in the last 2 books, which I do plan to read in February. Then I read Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. I listened to the audio and I gave this 4 stars. This was my cover-to-cover book club pick for January. I run cover-to-cover with Sam from Sam Writes a Little. And I mean, I'm not mad that we picked this book. We have a whole discussion on my channel where we talk for almost an hour, not about this book in particular, because it was just like an okay read. I personally don't understand why, how do I say this? I understand why people love it. It's just not really for me. I don't know if Tara DeWitt's writing is for me. And I said that in our discussion, just because the female character is very quirky and it's like too quirky for me. I love quirky characters, but sometimes I can't relate and emotionally connect with like a character that's too quirky, if that makes sense. She's definitely too quirky. I felt like the ending was extremely rushed. It was like this 3rd act breakup type thing, and then they didn't see each other for a month, and then all of a sudden she's like, I have to call him and tell him I love him after seeing something, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? So, I understand why people enjoy it, but it wasn't my favorite thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I probably should have rated it like 3.5 stars, the way I talk about it, because it's not on par. I'm probably going to change my rating, honestly, just because I feel like it's not on par to some of the other 4 stars that I have, if that makes sense. The next book I read was A Secret for a Secret by Helena Hunting. These books, especially this book, is read and listen in KU, so I have the physical book because I got it for when I saw her at one of the book signings I went to last year, but I listened to the audio, even though I have the physical book. And this was one of the books that I read for the KU Readathon. I didn't vlog it or anything like that, but my friends put it on, so I was participating over on Instagram, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. I feel the same way about this book that I feel about Funny Feelings. It was good. It was solid. I prefer a lie for a lie. This is a one-night stand book. Our female character Queenie and our main male character Kingston, they have a one-night stand, and then he's a goalie for the NHL hockey team. He goes to start up the season, realize that the girl he slept with was the general manager's daughter, and she's there to be his assistant. So he's very swoon-worthy, very much a cinnamon roll. He's not a hothead hockey player. Like, he keeps his cool on the ice. He's a very logical, very level-headed. Queenie is not that, so they complement each other well. It was cute. It was adorable. 3.5 stars. Enjoyed it. Yeah, it was just a solid read by Helena Hunting. I know what I'm going to get when I read her books, and this is a solid read by her. It's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite, but it's there. Then the next book I read was Iced Out by C.E. Ritchie. This is a new to me author, and this is an hockey romance, and I enjoyed this so much. I read it for the K-Readathon. I gave this book 4.5 stars. This book is a very much hate to love, enemies to lovers romance between two teammates, actually. You see them at the beginning of the book. They used to be, when they were younger, they were on, I think, separate teams. And you see they throw words back at each other, like different things. Oakley is one of the characters, and his parents, or his dad, was a very popular hockey player, along with what comes to be their coach in college, but he his uncle's also a really famous hockey player. And then you have Quinn, or Quentin. He is not very well known. He doesn't have like family that's really popular. He is extremely rich, like his family's rich, but they don't really support him playing hockey, so they throw words back and forth about that. Then you fast forward to where they're in college, and they're on this losing streak, and something happens at a party where Quentin kind of goes down on Oakley, and then they win their game, the first game of the season, the next day, and they're like, we have to keep doing this, so we keep winning. Like, they're into superstitions, which is really funny because a lot of athletes like are very, very into their superstitions. So I thought this was really funny, really enjoyable, really spicy, great romance. If you're looking for that, definitely check out this one. So excited to read more from C.E. Ritchie, and I have Don't You Dare by C.E. Ritchie on my Kindle already. And then I'm going to talk about these 3 books very, very quickly. I read the rest of the Runaway Road series by Daphne Perry. I did a read along in January with my friend Jess at Peace Out Books, and I read Quarter Miles, which is the 3rd book in that series, and I gave it 3.5, 4 stars. Then I read Forsaken Trail by Daphne Perry, gave that one 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed that one. That's my favorite. And then I read Dotted Lines, and I gave that one 4 stars. So basically the whole premise of this series is there is a car that gets passed along from each of the 5 friends, and they take it to like different destinations. So it started in Boston, ended up in West Virginia, then West Virginia to Montana, Montana to Oregon, Oregon to Arizona, Arizona to California, kind of when they all grew up in this kind of like junkyard. They were kind of orphans. They ran away from home, but they didn't want to put in this foster care system, so they kind of stuck around with each other, and I enjoyed it. Quarter Miles is kind of this friends to lovers romance. They've been best friends for years and years and years. They are roommates forced together, blah, 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 blah. Very enjoyable. Forsaken Trail is enemies to lovers, surprise baby, and that's my favorite. Who would have thought the surprise baby would have been my favorite of the series? And then Dotted Lines is a second chance romance, which was really cute. She's also a single mom in Dotted Lines, so enjoyed that series. It was pretty good. Pretty solid read by Daphne Perry. Didn't rate any of the books less than 3 stars, but yeah, I was happy to do that read along with Jess. Then I read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I listened to this audio. I actually saw the Bookish Cajun on Instagram talk about this book, or she posted about it. She was like ballerina dance teacher and a famous quarterback football star, and I was like, sold, yes please. And I gave it 4.5 stars. I will say this right away, this is a closed door romance. There is no on-page sex scenes, which I'm like, why? Why do all that build up and then not write a sex scene, right? But it's really cute. They've been friends since high school. They had went their separate ways in college, but then they both ended up in California. She runs this dance studio. He is this famous quarterback superstar for the football team in California, and they kind of, just slowly they fake date, and it's interesting. I enjoyed it. It was super cute. Like, it was adorable. That's the best way that I can put this book, is that it was absolutely adorable. I enjoyed the read. It's like 8-hour audiobook. Highly recommend for football romance. Football's not as much on page as I wish, but it was still cute. She has an injured knee after being in an accident in high school, so that was interesting to see what she does. Instead of going to Juilliard, she opens up a dance studio, and it's just really cute. I enjoyed it. And then the last book I have to talk about is From Blood and Ash by JLA. This was my 4th reread of this book. I'm hosting a From Blood and Ash World read-along with a couple other people here on BookTube, and each month we're reading a book, and then we'll have our live show. So if you're watching this on Friday, our first live show for this book is tomorrow, February 4th at 2 p.m. on Just From Honest Fiction's channel. I am rereading more in 2023. I posted on Instagram after I read this book. I listened to the audio, and it just still makes me so giddy to read this book. And even though I know everything that's happening, even though I know all the characters, I know all the plot twists, I still love these characters and I still love this world. Is it a perfect book? Absolutely not. Is it a perfect romance? Absolutely not. But I personally love it and I adore it. One of the first fantasy romances I've read back a couple years ago, so it's kind of stuck with me, very nostalgic. I love it so much. And yeah, this was a great 5-star reread for me. Even though this is one of the 5 stars I had, I count it because I did read the whole book. But that is all the books that I read in the last half of January and my statistics for the whole month of January. Leave me a snowflake emoji because January was cold and a lot of people got some snow, so leave me a snowflake emoji. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.